All right. So we have Gaur Chandra Prabhu at our. Today he has accepted to come and share some Krishna Katha with all of us. More of like a practical approach for Krishna consciousness. He's 17 years old and currently he's enrolled in college. His major is biology. I think BIO is biology. And his goal is to become as an orthodontist. At the age of 13, he got initiated by His Holiness Loknath Swami Maharaj. And the interesting thing is he finished his Bhakti Shastri. Bhakti Shastri is it's not an easy thing to complete. He did finish his Bhakti Shastri and he lives in Alachua since 16 years. Now, one thing which really touches me about Gaur Chandra Prabhu is he's very respectful to elders. The other day I went to his home and I was struggling to tie dhoti. Because Sakshi Gopal Prabhu has given me a dhoti which is of the quality of that dhoti was very slippery. I was not able to tie. So Gaur Chandra Prabhu came and then he said, Prabhu, I'll help you out. He's always wanting to help others. He's always wanting to respect the elders. So this is something what we all have to learn. You know, not getting good grades, not getting, not becoming studious in the classroom, but having our culture of respecting elders is very, very important. And our Gaur Chandra Prabhu exemplifies that particular characteristic. So we are very fortunate. We are very fortunate to have Gaur Chandra Prabhu in all of our midst. So let's welcome Gaur Chandra Prabhu by inviting, by loudly chanting Hari Bol. Everyone unmute yourself and say Hari Bol! Hari Bol!
Hari Bol.
Over to you, Gaur Chandra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much, Naibiram Prabhu, for that introduction. I just try my best to help those around me and progress in my spiritual life. So today I've been asked to speak a little bit about growing up in Krishna consciousness, how to deal with like peer pressure and how to understand our own philosophy while living in a world where everyone is straying away from God, from Krishna. So I'd like to start first with my experience as a child. So I live in the Alachua community here, and we have Bhaktivedanta Academy, which is a full devotee school. So I was very fortunate to go to this school. And this school encourages their children to develop their spiritual lives while at the same time developing their academic lives, right? So I joined as a kindergartner. So the young children, they will learn songs, they will learn small verses like the first verse to the Bhagavad Gita, while at the same time learning their alphabet, learning how to count and whatever. So I remember instead of saying things like A is for apple, we would learn that A is for arati, right? Instead of B is for ball, it was B is for bhakta, and so forth. And so like that, I started going to that school, and the children are usually very focused up until around middle school, because that's when we start going out, we start meeting other non-devotee children. That's when students and especially like the boys like myself, we started playing soccer on teams. When you go to those teams, you'll meet people who are not devotees. And so there was this almost like an incentive, sort of this feeling that grew among us that if we want to fit in with these cool kids from our soccer teams or wherever else we met them, we have to be like them. And so we started, you know, talking the way they talk, buying expensive shoes and different types of clothes and all sorts of things to fit in, right? But the problem with that was that while we were trying to become like them, we were leaving behind an important part of our own lives, because as devotees, we have to understand that bhakti is super important. And many of us began to like dwindle in our spiritual practice. We began to not take it as seriously and instead take things like video gaming more seriously, soccer more seriously, whatever, you know. And I'm not saying you shouldn't play soccer. I'm not saying you shouldn't video game. I'm not saying you shouldn't do whatever else. But um, leaving behind bhakti altogether is not the right way. So go away. Sorry. So by fifth grade, there were fifth or sixth grade, there was two groups of children. Those who had continued to do their spiritual devotional practices, and those who really didn't. And because of, my parents' guidance and their help, I was lucky to be part of the students that did continue to do their spiritual practices. And so I noticed, as the years progressed, as time progressed, that the children who had so desperately tried to fit in while leaving behind their own practices, their own identity, um, they began to develop bad habits. They began to start feeling all sorts of negative side effects, right? So anxiety, depression, addictions, and all sorts of other things. While the students who tried, and I'm not saying these students were reading Bhagavad Gita every day and they were all chanting 16 rounds every day and they memorized 108 shlokas or whatever. But the students that genuinely tried to at least keep spirituality as a core part of their life, not as a side part, these students seem to be more successful. So now I'm in college, and as during the past 2-3 years, especially during the pandemic, during lockdown, we didn't really have much contact with each other. And so last fall semester, when me and the children around my age all met in college, I noticed a big difference between these two groups, right? The children who had continued to perform their spiritual activities and their devotional life, they were much happier. They were much more independent, less affected by what was going around them, and just overall in a better state. While the other children who didn't really continue to take their devotional life seriously, who would put it as a side part to their life instead of making it a core part, a main part of their life, they were much more anxious. They were much more prone to, bad mental health. They were very awkward, really. And I just think that comes down to the fact that these people, instead of being their true selves, they try to become someone who our general modern society would accept more willingly. Because of that, they always have a front, they always have a mask on, right? They're always trying to pretend to be someone they're not. And so this affects them in a bad way because now they feel like if I try to go back to who I originally am, and if I try to express this, then what will these new friends of mine, these non-devotee friends of mine think? They'll start thinking, oh, he's weird. He's becoming weird, right? So it becomes difficult for them to transition back into good devotional practices, just because their entire friendship, their entire personality is now built on something they're not. So another thing, so that's the effects that happen when we try to put spiritual life to the side instead of making it a core part of our lives. We need to understand that as devotees, it is very, very, very important that we balance our spiritual and material lives. I'm not saying that you should give up everything material and just become spiritual. We'll get to that in a little bit. But a healthy balance is required. And so, another thing, sometimes I've talked to younger friends before, and they'll say things like, Gora, I don't want to have a shika because how am I going to explain that to people? It looks weird. No one else has it. How am I going to do certain hairstyles with a shika? It doesn't look good, and things like that. To which I respond, that's not true, right? As you can see, I grow out my hair, right? I'm not clean shaven. Um, and actually, if you had seen me 2 weeks ago, my hair was very long. It was up to like the middle of my cheek or something, right? But when people see my shika in college, right? I've had many people come up to me, people I don't know, I don't share any classes with. I'm just walking to my next class or something, and someone will come up to me and they'll say, hey, what is that on the back of your head? Why do you keep this hairstyle, this shika, right? So I explain to them. So I say, hey, the shika, it signifies that I am a Vaishnava. I follow Vaishnavism. And I try to explain to them what it means um, as a devotee, right? It signifies that we are a devotee. It signifies that we follow the Vaishnavacharyas, that we worship Krishna and all of that. And these people think it is the coolest thing ever. They think it's awesome, right? Um, and this is a little silly, but sometimes when I see someone still a little confused about the significance, I'm not sure how many people here are familiar with Star Wars. I'm assuming everyone's at least heard of Star Wars, right? But I'm not sure if you've all watched it or you're into it or not. But if you are, you'll know that the Jedi, right, in Star Wars, they have a little braid at the side of their head that signifies what? It signifies that they're Jedi. They follow the Jedi code. So sometimes I'll give that example. I'll say, just like the Jedi have their little braid to signify they're Jedis, I have the Shika to signify that I'm a Vaishnava. And that's never failed. Every time I say it, people are uh they're wowed. They're like, this is amazing. This is so cool, you know? And from there, I can get them into Krishna consciousness by continuing to talk to them or give them a little pamphlet. So I carry on these little pamphlets for the temple and I'll give it to them. I'll say, hey, come on Sundays, things like that. Additionally, another part of Vaishnavas that we do that most people don't is our kantimala, right? Our neck beads. And most people, they don't bat an eye. They don't really care. They look at it, and the most that most of anyone has ever said to me is cool necklace, right? They'll just say, oh, that's such an awesome necklace. I've had people ask me before too, where did you get it, right? And sometimes I'll tell them, I'll say, yeah, there's this Hare Krishna temple in Alachua. If you come there, there's a gift shop and they're selling these, but originally these are from India, so on and so forth. And then finally, the third thing that as Vaishnavas we do is our tilak, right? So I will be honest here. I don't wear tilak that often when I go to college. There has been a couple times that out of habit, I've put on the tilak in the morning and just gone to the campus, you know, and people will definitely ask. They'll be like, hey, what's that on your forehead? But it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's nothing to be like shy about. Because again, just like the Shika, when I explained to them that this tilak again is a marker that I am a Vaishnava. This is the philosophy I follow. People are like, oh, that's so cool. Sometimes I'll go a little more in depth and I'll say, yeah, in India, there's different types of tilak, right? And these different types of tilak, they'll signify what this person believes in, what sampradaya, what faction of faith they're from. And again, these people think it's just so awesome, right? And you might be thinking, yeah, well, that's in college. People are adults, they're a little more mature. What about when, middle school, high school, like that? And don't get me wrong, there'll definitely be people who make fun of you. The world isn't just all good people. There's bad people out there, annoying people out there, people that have nothing better in their lives to do than make fun of other people. But to that, I say you need to ignore them. Really just ignore them. And I know that's easier said than done, right? Sometimes words stick with you. If someone starts laughing at you, look at that weirdo. He looks so weird. Um, he dresses weird, puts on weird face paint or whatever. That sticks. That hurts. Hey, I don't want to be weird. So we decide I'm going to do what they consider normal. But we have to understand that this is an important part of us as Vaishnavas. And it's something that we should be proud of, we should treasure, right? And additionally, as many people as there will be saying that's weird, there's also going to be people that'll say that's so cool. And in my experience, this is my personal experience, so I can't really say in general, but in my experience, I've had more people have a positive reaction to what I wear and what I tell them than people who have a negative reaction, right? In fact, I can only think of one person who ever said that was weird or gave me a negative reaction. Other people, it was more neutral. They asked, they got their answer, and then they didn't care. That was it. They moved on. It's usually us that overthink, right? Everybody in their lives is already obsessed with what they're doing. They're already too overwhelmed with everything else in their life to really care about what anyone else is doing. They may notice something. They may ask about it to get their curiosity answered and fulfilled. But after that, most people don't give a second thought after it. They're done. So once we understand that, and I don't mean just hear it, I mean like truly understand that that's the reality. Most people are too busy with their own lives to really care about yours. Then it becomes much easier to ignore these comments, these kind of people who say this is weird. And I'll be honest, it feels really nice when someone comes to you and says, that's so cool. And they ask, because it's just, of course, we all want to be accepted. We all want to be cool. We all want to be whatever, normal. So when someone says that's so cool, we obviously feel happy, but we should also feel happy that our representation, you know, us as devotees, we represent Krishna consciousness, we represent ISKCON, that people have a positive outlook, people have a positive impression of that. We should be happy about that as well. Now, association. That's the next thing I want to talk about. So all of this becomes much easier when we have good association. If we associate ourselves with people who constantly belittle us, who constantly keep telling us that's weird, you look stupid, if we constantly associate with people who put us down, then obviously we will begin to have a bad impression of ourselves. Our confidence, our self-esteem will begin to lower. But if we surround ourselves with people who are positive, who are curious, who think that whatever you're doing is so cool, if you surround yourselves with devotees, then our faith becomes strengthened. We become strong in our own resolution, in our own philosophy, in our own religion. So association is very important. And you might say, well, I'm not like you, Gora. I didn't get to go to a devotional school. That's true. I was lucky. I got to go in an all devotee school. So I always had people encouraging me, right? The teachers, my friends, my seniors, the devotees that live in this community. And that's why I say for those who don't have this opportunity to associate with devotees very regularly, I want you guys to start chanting more, start reading a little more, right? Take every opportunity you can to associate with devotees. Because since it's so rare for some people, whenever you take that association, it becomes sort of like a prize because it's so rare. And because of that, you'll want it more. You'll want to associate more with devotees. You'll want to chat more. You'll want to read more with them. And so by doing that, we can build a strong foundation in Krishna consciousness. So for those that don't have easy access to devotee association, try to at least surround yourself with positive people, right? Try to surround yourselves with people who encourage you. Try to surround yourselves with people who are curious, who want to learn more. Because you may think, oh, it's such a hassle to explain to these people. But by explaining to these people, you will have a clearer understanding of what you stand for yourself. See, sometimes I'll test my friends. I'll ask them something. I'll be like, hey, if somebody came up to you and said, what are you all about? What is this all about? What is Krishna consciousness all about? What would you say? Some people have no idea what to say. They're confused because they're in this movement, right? Since they were children, they know what they're doing, but they haven't fully understood it. They're simply following it for the sake of following it, not because they truly want to. Others, they have a very clear definition of what they're doing. And when I ask them that question, they tell me, hey, we are Vaishnavas. We follow Sanatan Dharma. We follow Vedic culture. We worship Radha and Krishna, right? And they'll tell, we follow the four regulative principles. We have this philosophy that we are not this body. We're all parts and parcels of Krishna. We are his eternal servants, etc. Things like that. And so when you surround yourselves with these curious peoples, you will also have a chance to explain to them. And by explaining to them, you will have a clearer understanding of what you yourself are doing. And when you do that, that further strengthens your foundation in Krishna consciousness. Because now you're clear on what you want to do, right? How can you continue towards a goal when you're confused, right? How do you drive at night without the headlights? You don't know where you're going. You could crash into a person, you could crash into another car, you could crash into a stop sign, crash into everything. As soon as you turn those headlights on and the light clears the darkness and you can see, right? Now you're certain of what you want, where you're going. So similarly, once you really know what you stand for, what this philosophy is about, then your foundation in Krishna consciousness will become strong. And even if you are surrounded by non-devotees, you'll continue to practice your Krishna consciousness. So what I'm trying to say is surround yourselves with positive people, if not devotees, right? Try your best to get as much devotee association as you can. Take every opportunity. And when you're in that devotee association, try to do activities that will help your spiritual life, right? I'm not saying that, you all hang out together and the only thing you do is chant and read and discuss Krishna and all that. Obviously not. What I'm trying to say is during that hangout, make a time. Just set like 10 minutes apart for everyone to sit together and do one round, right? And then the rest of the time, play, talk, do whatever you want. Go skateboarding. I don't know if any of you skateboard, but do whatever. So there was a class that was given by Amalarinder Prabhu, right? Maybe I'll show the clip at the end of the talk. But in that clip, Amarendra Prabhu is saying the same thing. He said, if you are strong in your Krishna consciousness, then your father could be Hiranyakashipu, but you will be Prahlad. Your mother could be Surichi, but you will be Dhruva, right? So just like that, if you're strong in your Krishna consciousness, if you have faith, if you're clear about what you stand for, you could be surrounded by non-devotees, you could be surrounded by negative people, but you will continue to understand that this is the path that I'm on, and this is what I should continue on. So so I've talked about association, and I said that, if you can't associate with devotees very freely, at least positive people. And then that brings the question for some people, should I be friends with these non-devotees, right? Should I make friendships with these non-devotees? And to that, I say, yeah, you can. There's no problem. But we should understand that we shouldn't be influenced by these friends. We can keep a friendship with these people, but we should strive to influence them, right? So they say association makes the person, right? Don't become what your association is. Try to make your association become like you, right? Try to make them interested in Krishna consciousness. It's important to make connections with other people, even if they're not devotees, because people have important opinions, people have important ideas, lessons that we can learn, right? I have non-devotee friends from college, and what I do is I take from them what's useful and I leave what's not, right? So, for example, I have a friend, his name is Alejandro, and he's big into fitness, right? He leads a very healthy lifestyle. He goes to the gym regularly. He eats well, you know, he makes sure he's hydrated. He tries to have a very positive personality, trying to be respectful to everyone he talks to. And these are the qualities I try to learn from him, right? But he's also a little bit of what you'd say as a player, right? He flirts with every girl he meets. He, um, you know, he drinks, he parties, he does all sorts of other things as well. And that's the part I don't take from him, right? I take from him what's useful. I see that, oh, he's a committed man. He goes to the gym regularly. I should do that, right? So I created in my schedule a time where I go to the gym every day after college, right? So now I'm regular with that. I see that, he drinks plenty of water. So that's what I'm trying to do. I just bought myself a new water bottle the other day. This is a shaker bottle for protein shakes and whatever. But now I'm trying to also be better at drinking, more regular with what I eat, right? I see how respectful he is to other people when he's talking to them, even when he's upset. Actually, I've noticed there was this one time where he was very upset because his professor had given him an unfair grade, right? And he was just very, upset and not a great state of mind. And someone came to him and was talking to him and kept asking questions, right? And, me personally, even if I'm not upset, but a person keeps repeating question after question after question after question, after a while it becomes annoying and I would become a little annoyed, I'd be like, hey, can you stop? Like, do you have nothing better to do? Just question, 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 question. But that wasn't Alejandro. He stayed patient. He stayed calm. He didn't express his annoyance because he realized that this isn't the person that I'm upset at. I'm upset because of this. I shouldn't transfer that, misplace that anger on this person. So similarly, I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm trying to be more mindful of my emotions. I'm upset right now, but is it because of this person? No. I'm upset right now because um let's say I've procrastinated, right? And I have an essay due and I'm a little stressed, so I'm on the edge of my seat. So it's not because of this person, but because of what I've done. So I try to stay calm, I try to stay respectful. So the key point here, what I'm trying to say is, yes, be friends with other people, not just devotees. You can be friends with non-devotees, but try to make sure that these people are positive people in your life, right? Try to make sure they're good people and take from them what you can and leave what you don't need, right? Alejandro, big party guy. He probably parties 3 to 4 times a week. That's a lot if you ask me. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna, he's invited me before. Hey, you want to come to this party? I said no. Because that's not something that us as devotees we should be doing, right? But I take his regulation, right? His habits. He's got good habits and regulations. So that's what I take. So that's the key point. So now I want to talk about something. I want to go a little bit into some story, right? So the story of Prahlad Maharaj, I'm assuming everyone here is familiar with that story, right? So Prahlad Maharaj obviously was a pure devotee ever since he was born. We can't really compare ourselves to him, right? If I bring him up as an example, oh look, Prahlad Maharaj was surrounded by all of these demons, but he stayed spiritual. He's on a different level. And I understand that. People may be like, that's not a fair comparison. But I don't want to look at Prahlad Maharaj today. What I want to look at is his friends. So can anyone tell me what happened when Prahlad Maharaj went to school? What happened when he went to Gurukul? Does anyone know?
Is it?
Yeah, go ahead.
His when it was time for after recess or things, they were doing hitting cows and everything. So Prahlad Maharaj said that why can't we just chant and preach?
Yes, exactly. So what did Prahlad Maharaj say to them? He preached to them, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So Prahlad Maharaj started preaching to his friends, and his friends listened. They were open, you know? They accepted what he said and they kept an open, positive mind. And so in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, chapter Canto 7, chapters like 1 through I think 13, 14, something like that, is the whole pastime of Lord Nrsimhadev. So in chapter 8 is specifically where it talks about Prahlad Maharaj and his friends. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, chapter 8, text 1. Narada Muni, so I'm just going to read the translation here of this verse. It says, Narada Muni continued, all the sons of the demons appreciated the transcendental instructions of Prahlad Maharaj and took them very seriously. They rejected the materialistic instructions given by their teachers, Shanda and Amarka. So the word I want to look at here is that the sons of the demons appreciated the transcendental instructions, right? They appreciated it. And that's the first step to finding good association. When you talk to someone, right, a non-devotee, look at their reaction to what you're saying. Are they brushing it off? Are they belittling, like bringing it down? Are they appreciating it? Are they taking it with an open mind? The people that brush it off, don't pay too much attention to them because that's a neutral reaction, right? They've gotten their answer to their curiosity or whatever. They're just going to move on. The people who put it down, make fun of it, try to belittle you, don't pay attention to them at all. Try to distance yourself from them because this is not good association. But the people who you see are appreciating what you're saying, they become a little more curious, right? The people who have an open mind, try to be friends with them because these are people that are more likely to have a positive impact on your life, right? So Prahlad Maharaj, when he's instructing his classmates, right? In the next verse, it says, when Chanda and Marka, the sons of Shukracharya, observed that all the students, the sons of the demons, were becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness because of the association of Prahlad Maharaj, they were afraid. They approached the king of the demons and described the situation as it was. This goes back a little bit to my point where I said, when you associate yourself with people, try not to become like them. Try to make them like you, right? This is what's happening here, right? Prahlad Maharaj didn't become like the rest of the demon children, not demoniac children. He didn't cruelly hurt a cow. He didn't beat, he didn't do all sorts of nonsense. Instead, he opened their minds, made them appreciate Krishna consciousness, and started them on their spiritual journey. And you might think, well, that's Prahlad Maharaj. What chance do I have? To that I say, well, you're also a devotee. And to devotees who try, Krishna will always help them. If you're sincerely trying, Krishna will always help you, right? And again, like I said, you also have to think, who am I talking to, right? If you're talking to a person who made fun of you, who's belittling you, who's putting whatever you say down, there's no use in talking to them because their mind is already closed. They're not going to listen to you. To the people that kind of brushed it off, maybe it'll be difficult. Maybe you can open them up. But again, it might just not be worth it. But to the people who were open, who were curious, these are the people you should try to talk to because these are the people that will accept what you say. And these are the people that are most likely to, start their journey in Krishna consciousness. And, that's what Vaisheshika Prabhu says. When we go on book distribution, we should look at the reaction of the people we talk to, right? So in book distribution, what I'll do is if I hand someone a book, like I'll hold it out, right? And that's my first test. If the person doesn't take it, then I know that this person isn't very interested. So, I'll talk a little bit, maybe give them some prasadam, and that's it. I'll send them on their way. If the person takes the book, now they're a little curious, right? They're a little open. They're at the very least, they're at the neutral position. So then I continue to talk a little bit, right? And I'll ask things. I'll ask open-ended questions, right? And I'll see how they react to those. And if these people give me straight, flat answers like no, yes, I don't think so, I don't like it, whatever, then I'll be like, okay, these are more neutral people. It might be a little more difficult. So what I'll try to do is at least get them to take a small book, like Higher Taste, Science of Self-Realization, something. But when people give me open-ended answers, so if I say, what does karma mean to you, right? And these people's, they start talking. They're like, oh, karma, yeah, that's a concept that I'm really interested in. As far as I understand, it's kind of like the idea of whatever you give comes back to you, right? As you sow, shall you reap, so shall you reap, and so forth. So, and they continue talking. I realize, oh, this is an open-minded person. This is a curious person. And this is someone that I should try. to start on their devotional service. So we should try to influence people by our association, but it's not going to work for everyone. So we also need to be intelligent about who we try to influence, right? We're, don't waste your energy on people who are not interested. Try to find people who are open-minded. Try to find people who are interested. And so now the final thing I want to talk about, after everything I've said, you might be thinking, might be kind of hard, like where do I start? How do I start, doing this? How do I start solidifying my base in Krishna consciousness, my foundation? And some people take a very extreme approach. They decide, oh, to be strong in Krishna consciousness, I should give up everything material and I should only focus on my spiritual life. To that, I say no, absolutely not. Do not do that. Even Krishna doesn't recommend that, right? We need to understand, earlier I mentioned that there should be a healthy balance between our material life and our spiritual life. What do I mean by that? I mean that we should understand that our spiritual life should be the core. It should be the main part of our life. But we should also understand that as members of the society, as humans on this planet, we also have our own prescribed duties, our own obligations that we have to fulfill, right? So for most of us, we're students. So our duty right now is to study, right? For the adults, if they're married, they're a parent, then that's to take care of children, provide for a family. If they're not, that's to, do a job, contribute to society, do whatever. So we need to find this healthy balance between the two. And, in Bhagavad Gita, I'm just pulling it up right here, chapter 3, text 6, right? Krishna says that one who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. So what does that mean? So Krishna is saying here is that if you just arbitrarily give everything up and decide that I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, right? So you're forcing yourself not to do things, but your mind continues to stay on those topics. Your mind continues to be like, man, I really want to do that. Then there's no point because you'll end up doing it eventually, right? You're just fooling yourself. You're deluding yourself. You're pretending to be a sannyasi. You're pretending to give everything up, right? As humans, we have our tendency to enjoy. We have our tendency to want to do things. So what Krishna recommends then is that what we should do is we should continue to do these things, but do it as a service to him, right? So, for example, grades in school, right? Everyone wants good grades. You want to be smart, right? But if you just focus on that, what happens? You become obsessed, right? You're like, I have to get those good grades, and so I can get into this college, some Ivy League college or whatever, and then graduate with a degree and get some high job and tell people that, yeah, I'm a straight A student. Yeah, I'm a graduate from MIT. Yeah, I'm a but when we should understand that as devotees, that's not our only goal. That fame, that those goals, that money, it's not the only thing that is continue to reconcile that is be like, okay, yes, I want good grades, but you know what? I'll get good grades so that I can get into a good college, so that I can get a good degree and a good job, so that I can earn money for Krishna, right? So I can use Lord, right? So as grihastas, the duty of a grihasta is to take care of the family, to provide for the family. But additionally, it's also to provide the services that they can to temples, right? To devotees, to Krishna as much as they can. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they used to work in the court of the ruler of Bengal, and they had so much money. They were incredibly rich. And what did they do? They donated half of what they earned. And I'm not saying that you guys should donate half of what you earn, but they did. They donated half of what they earned to brahmanas, to the temples, and so forth. So more realistically, for our day and age, you might want to tithe to a temple, right? Give a small donation every month, something like that. So additionally, I also want to look at like what would happen if someone decided to give everything up and just focus on spirituality, right? It's like, okay, yeah, maybe I might get deluded. Maybe my mind is so focused on material things, but hey, at least, I'm completely free. I'm not doing those things, and I'm trying to focus on spiritual life. The thing is, our society functions because people work. They do their jobs, they do their duties, right? And so Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, text 5, everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the mode's material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. What does that mean? That means that everyone is born, based on their previous karma. They're born to a certain family. They're born as a certain gender. They're born in a certain nation, right? And based on all that, they have things they have to do. My example would be like parents. What would happen if the parents just decided, screw this, screw all this job stuff and this material stuff and taking care of the children. We're gonna quit and we're just gonna focus on our spiritual life. That wouldn't work. Now there's a vacancy in that job position. The children are being taken care of, right? And if everyone started doing that, society would eventually collapse because people wouldn't be doing what they have to do. So then Krishna says in text 8 of chapter 3, perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. So there's a level of maintenance that we have to do, right? We have to work a little bit. We have to earn money to pay rent, buy food, buy clothes, whatever. But at the same time, we should also understand that that's not the only thing. And we should try to balance that with our spiritual life. Try to do things understanding that at the core, you're a devotee. And these are things that you are doing sort of because you have to, right? You want to focus on your spiritual life, but you have to balance the two. You can't just give up one and focus on the other, right? And so Krishna says in text 35, related to this, he says that it is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. So a grihasta should continue to be a grihasta and not just give it up and become a sannyasi, even if they would be the perfect sannyasi, because grihastas are important to our society, right? Working families, working people, very important to our society. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. What Krishna here is trying to say here is that we all have something we have to do, right? Krishna has a plan for us. He wants us to do something, and we should follow that plan. We should try to balance our spiritual and our material lives. Don't give up one and focus only on the other. Try to balance both of them. So, for example, in my personal life, the way that I do this, I continue to go to college. I continue to study. I continue to talk to people, my classmates, professors, whatever. But additionally, I also try to keep a certain amount of the day, a certain time of the day for spiritual activities. So I'm not saying you have to do this, but this is just like something I've developed over years, my personal habits. I wake up at 5:45 in the morning, right? I get ready by 6 and I take the next half an hour to just chant. And usually I get 4 to 5 rounds done in that next half an hour. Then after that, I read a little bit. And, I don't always read a whole verse of Srimad Bhagavatam or something. Sometimes I'll just read something small, like this book here. It's just a small little book, Gita Ratnamala. And all this has is the important shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita. They're word for word in translation. No purport, no nothing. And I'll read this a little bit, try to see if I can remember verses that I've memorized previously, try to see if I can memorize another verse or whatever. So that's something I do just to, you know, have a spiritual side of me. Another thing I do is I just try to go to the temple at least once a day. If not the temple, then at least just the deities in the house. Just go there, sit a little bit, chant in front of the deities. I like to practice my mridanga in front of the deities. I have other friends who have different ways of balancing their material and spiritual life. I know this one girl, she wakes up way later than me, right? Her normal waking up time is like 9:30, 10-ish, right? I think that's late, but she thinks that's perfectly normal, whatever. But she wakes up and by the time she gets ready and stuff, she has to go for classes and she does whatever. And then when she comes home, first thing she does is go to her altar at home, pay her obeisances, and just sit a little bit. She said that recently what she started to do is sit in that temple room and reflect on the day. Reflect on the day and how it's gone, right? What did she do that day? And again, because this is still the middle of the day, she'll also reflect a little bit of what happened after yesterday's reflection. She's like, okay, so after yesterday's reflection, I went and I scrolled on my phone for 2 hours and then I had dinner and then I chanted like 1 round and I went to sleep. Maybe today I'll try not to be on my phone as much. Maybe I'll try to add an extra round and I have some homework to do and whatever. And then her reflection for the same day, she'll say something like, today's classes went well, but I noticed that I was getting unnecessarily upset at a classmate. So maybe I should try to check my anger a little bit, like that. So that's her practice. Completely different than mine. She doesn't read. She doesn't chant 16 rounds. But she takes the time of day to do something spiritual. Anything. Because even if you do something small, something little, then eventually you'll be able to see the results, the benefits of that. And eventually you'll want to do more and more and more, right? So the key takeaway from that section is that balance your spiritual and material life. I'm not trying to say to give up one, do the other. And I'm not trying to say that balancing means that you have to read a chapter of Bhagavad Gita every day and you have to chant 16 rounds every day, but try to do something spiritual. Just before we get to the questions, I see a hand raised. I just want to leave you with one last quote. So I don't know where I heard this, but I heard this quote and I just really love it. The quote says, be mindful of others' expectations, but don't make your mind full of others' expectations. Oh, Chaitanya Prabhu, that's who told me. Chaitanya Prabhu says this quote. What does that mean? That means try to understand that yes, there are things you have to do. As a student, you have to study. As a grown adult, you have to do your job. You have to work with people, right? When you have non-devotee friends, you should understand that yes, these people do this. I should take what's useful to me and leave what's not. But don't make your mind full of others' expectations. Don't try to change yourself for these people. stick to your Krishna consciousness. Be proud of who you are. Understand that I'm a devotee and this is my path. And there will be people who support me and there will be people who don't. People who think it's weird, people who think it's awesome. You just have to try and surround yourself with the good side of it. So that's everything I wanted to cover. I'm sorry if it was everywhere. I'm not very good at giving classes or anything. This is probably like my second time I've ever done it. I tried to give you some things to take away. So main points, just to quickly refresh. Don't be embarrassed of your stuff, right? Don't be embarrassed with tilak, the shika, and the shika nakanti. Just understand that most people don't really care. And the people that do either think it's cool or don't have anything better in their lives to do. Take only what's useful, leave what's not from the people that you surround yourselves with. Balance your spiritual and material life. Again, you don't have to overdo it. Just do something small, right? That could just, in your house, you could just do the morning arati. Not even, maybe just sit for 10 minutes, do one round in front of the altar, right? If anyone practices instruments, practice your instruments in front of the altar. I don't know. And last but not least, again, be mindful of other people's expectations. You have things you have to do, but don't make your mind full of others' expectations. So, yeah, I saw a hand up earlier. If you want to just unmute yourself and ask your question. Yes, Om?
Prabhuji, I don't have a question. I have like a comment. Prabhuji, when you said that you can just sit for in front of the altar, or at least for like a spiritual thing, like for at least one time a day, then also one of the Bhagavad Gita shloka or Srimad Bhagavatam, I don't remember. It said the meaning is that it's like if you have a little if you have a little advancement in spiritual life, it can save you from the greatest danger.
Exactly. That's wonderful. That's a great point you just said. That's what I was trying to relay. Even if you do something small, it'll eventually, because your spiritual life is such that for every one thing you do, you get 1,000 times that benefit, right? In material life, it's an equal proportion. You do something, you get an equal result. In spiritual life, it's not. You do something and you get 1,000 times the result. Remember that also counts for the bad things. But you know,
Yeah.
even if you do something small, then yeah, just like you said, Om, it'll save you. It'll, strengthen you.
Prabhuji, I also heard something else that says that if you take one step in Bhakti, Krishna will take 1,000 steps back.
Towards you. Yes. So if you take one step towards Krishna, Krishna will take, I don't know about 1,000. I heard 10, but could be the same. The analogy is still there. You take one step and Krishna reciprocates by many times back, right? Anyone
Thank you.
else?
So Gaurav Prabhu, I don't know about the kids, but I've learned so many things today. So one of the best practical ways to be Krishna conscious and not feeling ashamed of your practices. One of the best sessions I've heard. So one thing which I like the most is you always should have a filter in front of you, absorbing only things what you want and rejecting things what you don't want. I think that's something which all these kids want. Kids should learn that. Otherwise, kids can get influenced very easily, and then they can get into some kind of a bad habits too. Mhm. And other thing is at least sitting for doing like 5-10 minutes of spiritual practices every day.
Cut out.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. So that filter thing I like the most. And other thing is doing at least like 5-10 minutes of spiritual practices every day. Don't overdo, go with your pace. At the same time, make it a point that you are spending some quality time with the Krishna. So very nice very nice delivery of your session. The way you said, one thing which I like the most is the way you're connecting every philosophical point with your own example. How you used to do. That is something very important. Saying philosophy is very easy, but connecting philosophy with our own lives is something which is very, very essential. Can I upload this video in the YouTube? Is that fine?
Yes, Prabhu. I
Because
don't
not
think
many
this
have
is
joined today.
I don't
Not
think this
many have
is that
joined.
great of a
I don't know, something happened to my internet. Can you all hear me? Hare Krishna.
offer. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, something happened to there was a long pause, but I think you said yes for the uploading. So I will upload the video.
Yeah.
So other kids also can get benefited. And trust me, it's one of the best sessions I had.
Oh,
I'm not flattering you. I'm not just saying for the sake of saying, but I like the way your approach is towards Krishna consciousness in a practical way. One more thing, what you all have to learn is Gaura is a very good helper too. If his mom and dad is doing something, the parents will not even ask him to do it. He'll just go. He'll just go and start doing it. He's a nice pizza maker too. He makes wonderful pizzas. Right? So
yeah.
I think Gaurav, you should come once in a while and hang out with these kids and give them courage to practice Krishna consciousness. Make them feel that you're fortunate that not many kids are practicing, but at least you're practicing. So please do
Yes.
come once in a while and hang out with these kids. Give them the confidence. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gaurav. Any questions anyone has? Any kids?
I see Joshit has his hand up.
Yes, Jashit Prabhu.
Prabhuji, it's me actually. Jashit is here, but I was listening along with Jashit Prabhu. I just want to appreciate and glorify you, Gaurav Prabhu, and Naina Brahm Prabhu for getting Gaurav Prabhu onto the class. As you rightly mentioned, Naina Brahm Prabhu, it's for me. I don't know about Jashit and Nishita, but the class is for me, for adults. You put it so nice, Gaurav Prabhu. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. One thing that I learned is to balance. As the age goes on, it more seems like, okay, I have to go too much into spiritual, and the others around me are forcing me to go into the material, but it's not. We have to balance both spiritual and material, and use material in the spiritual way, keeping Krishna in the center. That's what I learned, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much.
Of course.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much. Hare Krishna.
Any other questions anyone has? Any kids? Nishita, you want to say something?
I just wanted to say that I enjoyed the class and I felt relatable to some of these points.
Very good. Very good. Very nice. Anyone else? Yes, Jay.
I also enjoyed it.
You enjoy the class. So you should not just leave it with enjoyment. You should just start implementing what you have learned. That's the important step, right? I think Gaura, I'm gonna invite you like once in a while, at least like once in a month or maybe once in a 2 months. Please come and hang out with these kids. These kids are wonderful kids. Every kid in this forum, they know music. They know the musical instrument, either mridanga or harmonium.
Mm-hmm.
They just need some kind of a fine tuning in their lives, like how they can balance their lives and how they can become Krishna conscious. So very nice. Thank you so much, Gaura Prabhu. Let's appreciate Gaura Prabhu by loudly chanting. Everyone unmute yourselves now. Everyone unmute yourselves. Hari Bol!
Very
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol!
Hari Bol.
Very nice, Gaura Prabhu. So I think since you have approved, I'm going to upload this video so other kids also can get benefited. Thank you once again. We will see you very soon in Alachua. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you
Hare
so much for
Krishna.
having me.
Yeah.